Hello and welcome to the FSF podcast. I am Tim. I am your host. I'm here joined by my co-host Ben in Funko image only to remind you that this is a show made by nerds for nerds. So we are excited to welcome two amazingly nerdy guests here today who are voice actors and have just this incredible resume of voice work, each one of them in their own rights. But we're here today to talk with them about a different project away from their voice work. And very excited to talk with them about a release of a new steampunk graphic novel that is just coming out, and it's something they co-wrote together, and we can't wait to talk to them about it. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Yuri Lowenthal and Tara Platt.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Happy to talk about Topsy McGee.
And all things nerdy.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. So I am excited because your agent was kind enough to send over the artwork, and he sent us over some PDF copies last night to read. So awesome. I have read through that, and I have thoughts, feelings, and emotions.
Awesome.
Excuse me.
You were among the first, so we are excited to hear them.
Oh boy. Yeah. So it's really cool. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about this because it's, I have a lot of feelings. Like I said, I have feelings about it. But before we get into any of that, I'm hoping that you will take a couple moments to talk about Topsy McGee and the Scarab of Solomon, explain what it is and what our listeners can look forward to with it.
Well, as you said, it's an original graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very long process to get to it, but she's a character that's been with us for a number of years. And we finally realized that the best place she might be served at the moment is in comic form, because we would have more control over the story. And it's very visual, and comics are a very visual medium. And so it felt like it was a good merging of story, character, and physical, the way that it was going to be expressed.
The sort of the short version of sort of the chain of events was we would tell each other stories about Topsy McGee when we were bored. We're fans of like steampunk adventure.
The Mummy, stuff like that.
Yeah, The Mummy, Indiana Jones, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Tomb Raider, like all those.
They're fun.
It's fun. And we would tell stories of this heroine, Topsy McGee, and then sort of on a whim, when I was at a convention, I saw an artist that I liked, and I commissioned, without her knowledge, a drawing of her as Topsy McGee. And that was sort of
nice.
in that image that it was like it lit a spark in us.
Because she became real somehow. She wasn't just a little story idea. Now she was like visually.
Sure.
And from that, we had designed a costume for her to wear to like masquerade balls, things like that. And then once she was dressed as the character, we're like, we have to
do a short film.
Yeah, we have to do this movie. So we did a short film called Topsy McGee versus the Sky Pirates. And it was a blast. And then from that, a friend of ours, Chris Pearson, who created the show Dan Versus, he said, "Hey, I would love to write a pilot. Have you ever thought about pitching this as a TV show?" And we were like, we just thought it was our little character, but sure. So he wrote a TV pilot. We pitched it around for a while, but it was a bad time for steampunk and television. So that didn't happen, but we still wanted to continue telling these stories. So we thought, how could we do that and be in control of it? And comic books was the next thing. And so this story is it's like a 3-issue trade paperback.
Because in a way it would be good as serialization, because each issue would be its own little adventure. But this all worked well together to be, like he said, the trade paperback version.
Yeah, so it's an adventure that we hope is one of many more we get to tell, because it's not like we've gotten it out of our system with this.
No, we love her. She's a great character.
Yeah.
I can see why you would. In reading the graphic novel, one of the things that stood out to me, and you guys already kind of mentioned this, but as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God, this is like The Mummy. And, and it had that same sense of adventure. There's moments where I actually literally laughed out loud, because
I'm so happy.
There's great little one-liners between the two of them. Mm-hmm. And little one-liners between them and the bad guys, and I always love little snarky comments, back and forth like that. Yeah. And so I thought that was very like perfect. It was just a wonderful setting. I loved the seriousness and the uptightness of him, and at times, and because it kind of reminded me a little bit like like him being like, oh, Muffy, let's go on an adventure, something like that.
Exactly.
And then she's like, yes. And I loved that you guys showed like her suitcase, like she's ready to go, but there's like gun, knife, gun, knife, gun. And I was like, she's like, yeah, let's go on an
Right, and her
adventure.
tea set. Yeah,
Yeah, and her tea
Well, it can
set.
also be used as a weapon.
that's true. That's true. It does get them out of a
And-
jam.
yeah, or a way to get you out of a jam. Yeah. But
There's
I
also
love
probably
that.
jam in there, by the way.
Probably, yes. I would think so based on what I saw. But I love the fact that you guys worked in both literary classic characters like Nemo, and then there's Harry Houdini in the story. And I'm like, this is so cool. It's this weird but cool way of intertwining reality with fiction and just kind of making it all fun. It was a nicely paced story. And I like
I'm so
that.
glad to hear that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and one last note, and then I'll let Ben talk. I promise.
Sure.
Are you sure about that?
He's clicking off
No.
on his mute.
No,
I have my dog, and I don't want her to bark in the interview.
I'm never really sure about that, Ben. You know that by now. But one of the other things I really did like about this, and this is just, and I don't know if this was intentional or if this was just me reading something into it because, well, I'm a nerd, but I loved the 1960s Batman. And there is all of the biff, zam, slunk, sliff, all these different sound effects. And as I'm reading it, I'm turning the page. I'm like, it's like Batman. So anyway.
And, I would be hard pressed to say that I have not been influenced by that in my life. That was a big part of my childhood. But it was actually, I have to credit the letterer. He said, hey, when you're going into doing, where you want sound effects, you can do a couple if you want that we hear all the time, but try to really make them your own. Like try to make them so specific that it's not just another bam and another pow. And
Gotcha.
so I dug really, I drilled down really deep on some. Some of them are really kind of weird when I actually see them written out. But
they're fun.
Yeah.
They're fun. It's
Totally.
play. Like you said, like there has to be sort of this give and take, right? Like we create an idea and then the artist or the letterer does their job and then it eventually comes to you. And there's sort of like we're all working together to make it come to life. And that's where the play is, right? Like it's all of us and it's you reading into from all of the extensive experience you have by watching The Mummy or doing that, like whatever your personal color and flavor of that is with all of those other personal colors and flavors. And so that is, I mean, like,
but if you liked it, yes, it was intentional.
But you also, you have read all those things.
Exactly,
so like it was influenced in a way.
No, I loved it. That was great. So
awesome.
Thank you.
Hi, Ben.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Huge fan of you both, by the way.
Thank you.
You can't see me. I am absolutely losing my mind fanboying right now. Anyway, so I do want to point at how you mentioned that it's very much inspired like Mummy and Indiana Jones. There are so many points throughout the reading that I'm just like, oh, this reminds me of insert moment from The Mummy, Indiana Jones, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. All of them, well, I guess all of them are just fantastic literature on their own, but I think the combining of everything in Topsy McGee just makes it way more fun. Plus the steampunk aspect, which steampunk, in my opinion, is one of the more interesting genres to read, but more difficult to write. So were there any major roadblocks in the writing process? And if there was, how'd you get past them?
That's a great question.
Yeah. I mean, there were, just in the fact that it was a graphic novel and I'm used to writing, we're used to writing for like TV and film, like those kind of scripts.
We have more space is what he's saying. We can
or novels. Yeah. And so writing for graphic novel came with a giant learning curve. Thankfully, we had Comfort and Adam, as they're known in the comic book world, Comfort, Love, and Adam Withers, as sort of our Sherpas on this one. We actually went to them first when we decided we wanted to do this. We were already friends, and we know they're really great at making comic books. We said, hey, we want to do this, but we don't know what we're doing. Would you be available to
mentor us, guide us,
to help us out, to help produce this thing we want to do? And they were, I mean, we could not have done it without them, I don't think, in this, or it certainly would not have been, as good as it came out. you have to be more spare with your dialogue. You have to think visually in a different way, I think, than when you're writing for other formats. You've only got a certain amount of space to tell the story, and you have to, honestly, you have to let the artist tell so much of that story. So it was really working together with the artists, but writing like specifically for steampunk. I mean, I think to create that in that world. I think we love it so much.
It's fun.
And it's tough. The only sort of hurdle we were afraid of is that do people hate steampunk these days?
Well, no, but
I couldn't think of that, when we were writing.
But also, I feel like steampunk is this wonderful historical element, but futuristic element. But you can sort of put yourself. I mean, like anything that's science fiction, which in a way steampunk is science fiction.
Jules Verne was like the first.
Yeah.
Anything that's science fiction, you get an opportunity to play with technologies that may or may not have been possible or available, but also have a little bit of that that sprinkling of history in there, because I think that we learn from history to see the future, and there's a lot going on in the world right now that we can definitely learn from our history to move forward. So I feel like yes, you can use you can use steampunk as this wonderful medium to get fun and playful and adventure, but you also get this great melding of, just like we put in, historical figures and literary figures, and you get a little smattering of, this is what we want to sort of without hitting you over the head politically, but like, this is some information that we think is good for us to be like, these are the good guys, these are not the good guys, let's go from there moving forward, and sort of take that information as you see fit to like what we can do with our lives. We're in a very tumultuous time in history, and we have lived through tumultuous times in history, and if we can learn from those experiences, that helps us moving forward. And so I don't know that there was something specific that we had to do with the writing to make it a steampunk sort of thing, except that it was just like where we saw it taking place. And I think it gives us all those various layers to put in a little like, okay, there's a little commentary, but also, isn't this fun? And also cool, these things happened that like, what if they went a little differently? And like, they are friends with Nikola Tesla, and there are like, it fills in the world in a fun and exciting way where there's hope and possibility, because I think often in the day and age that we live in, there's a lot of really not great things happening. And, you wake up and you're like, oh my God, what happened today? And oh my God, how has that happened? Like there's a lot. Right. And life is heavy. And if you can find some hope in something, then sometimes you can see your own path through in a more hopeful way.
I like that.
That was very well said. I know you can't see me, but I'm nodding and smiling along because everything has been fantastic. I do 100% agree with you that like fantasy or just any kind of escapism should convey a type of lesson, but you can't, beat someone over the head with it, because then they're just going to ignore it. You have to sneak it in there a little bit. Yeah. And by the way, Yuri, steampunk is always cool.
Thank you, Ben. Oh man, it's I love it so much, and genre for me has always been a place to talk about other things, and by the virtue of making a genre, it's almost like, at least for me, I almost never like plan that stuff out ahead of time. I'm just writing a fun story that's in the genre that I love, and because of who I am, certain things are going to creep in there. And we both love steampunk so much.
I mean, I think it just intrinsically started with who she was as a character, because in a way, it's like if I were really, really cool and had witty retorts all the time and could fight with a rapier, and like it would be like this heightened, cool, maybe British version of myself, kind of. And that was where that character kind of originated, sort of in base. But then it was very easy to see where she lived in this steampunk world. And so I think we can't see her devoid of that world. So like the world is fleshed out around this character living her life, her best life, in this amazing environment.
You know what? A comparison I've never drawn before, but just occurred to me, is the Avengers, like the original British TV show, The Avengers.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're basically the Emma Peel.
Like
Emma Peel was like this,
who doesn't want to be
the
that?
kick-ass, part of the team.
Yeah.
Fun about that.
Yeah, that's great.
I will say, Oh, sorry. I will say, if you do want to live out your fantasy of rapier and witty comments, LARP is a thing.
Yes, but I don't actually have witty comments. I'm a way homer, so I'm like, oh, that's what I should have said. So like, I don't actually possess the capability of like in that moment, like.
It's shower arguments of like 3 hours later, you're in the shower, like, and this is what I would have said.
Yeah. So I think LARPing would be much more anxiety inducing for me, because then the whole time I'd be like, why didn't I do that cool thing?
We are regular patrons at the Renaissance.
This is why I like a script. If I have a script, then I can say the cool thing and be cool in the moment.
And that's, I mean, the costume was created because you like to go to masquerade balls.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Nice. Yeah, at that point, if you do decide to do LARP, I think one of the things you do is either keep a phone or something nearby where you're like, hold on, and here it is. It's on this list right here. Get ready, bad guy. And
you have one of those like. You have one of those like football coach like arm sleeve things with all the plays and whatnot, and it's just comments written there. It's like, no, that's not good.
Yeah, Yuri's like, okay, this is what you. It's like a Cyrano de Bergerac, right? It's like you just sit on the side and like, why, thank you, sir. Whatever.
Or you can even have a little earpiece.
Exactly.
Just go AirPods and just to keep each other on.
Yuri's the man in the chair.
I'm the guy behind the girl. Yeah.
There you go.
You just make me sound really feminine and cool. Thank you.
That's my job.
Guys, one of the things that we've come to appreciate over the years, because we've had an opportunity to interview so many different voice actors over the time of our show, and we've come to appreciate that voice actors are never just one thing. And certainly talking with you guys here today, this is proof of it. It's not just, you guys just aren't voice actors. I mean, although we really do appreciate your voice acting skills, thank you. And we can talk about that later. But we really do appreciate the characters that you guys have brought to life. Because you guys have all these shows and animated shows and animes and video games, and you're bringing these characters to life for other human nerds such as ourselves. But one of the things that we appreciate is that there are other interests that you have. Some are musically inclined, some are painters or artists of other stripes. But they all do those other things because it helps them to express their artistry in a different way. So how does writing for a graphic novel scratch an artistic itch that voice acting just does not do?
Well, I guess, it is about storytelling and root. So like it comes from the need to tell a story or to play with a character, to invest in that world and that surrounding and those questions that come up whenever you're dealing with a character, the who, what, where, when, why, hows. So like the detectiveness of being an actor. So I think it touches on all of that is part of the work of being a voice actor, but it gives you sort of the autonomy and the ability to like own it, because like when we're voice actors, we're waiting for someone to hire us to go in and dissect a script and come to ideas with our character and do it. But we kind of have to be given permission from someone else. I can't just knock on the door and be like, hi, DC, I'm showing up today to play this character that you didn't know I'm going to be playing. Like, it doesn't work that way. You have to be cast and you have to be hired for the job. And you're not always right, or they don't hear your audition and someone else gets cast. And so you're kind of in this waiting game of forever being a freelance person waiting to hopefully get jobs and creating stories for yourself, whether for us, this graphic novel, other novels we've written, other, making web series, other content that we've created. It's all really at root about storytelling and about diving into fun things that we get tickled by or interested by or fascinated or hooked by, and then following them, like just following the threads of those stories. And so for us, the storytelling aspect is really what links us together. Like that's what we're excited about as creatives. And that's why we do write, because it gives us the means to more control and dive in and do it on our own time, whenever we want, when we're not being hired by somebody else.
If we just waited around for somebody to say, hey, would you guys write this graphic novel about this, set in the steampunk world where you guys are these married adventurers, we'd be waiting around forever.
Yeah.
So, but if you can take control of that by writing that and finding a way that you can create that yourself, it's why we have the short film. the Topsy McGee short film. It's why that happened. It's why
we
the
have our
comic
web
book
series.
happened.
It's why Shelf Life happened. It's why What a Lurk happened. It's why your book Top City happened.
It's the stories we want to tell that nobody else is asking us to tell. So it's just sometimes you just got to do it yourself.
I think though that's kind of awesome that it's the thing that you want to do, not the thing that you have to do.
Yeah. Although we love the work that we do, it's just that it's in someone else's choice. Like this is
right. Exactly.
We get the constant permission for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the self-fulfillment of I get to enjoy this because I enjoy this. I mean, I enjoy what I do for work, but being here talking with you guys and doing this for me is a different way of scratching an itch that I can't scratch in any other way. This, the ability to sit down and talk to people and find out, because I love people's stories. I want to know why you do what you do. What makes you tick? What got you into this? And what got you into writing? What got you into that? What got you in, because it helps me to appreciate you as not only a human, but as an artist who's doing these different things. And I get to see it through somebody else's perspective. And that's one of the things I love about this show is that I get to learn everybody's perspective and see things through different eyes. And that means a lot to me personally. So I do like that answer. And that makes a whole lot of sense to me.
Awesome.
Okay. So I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan, as Tim can attest to.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that happens in Tolkien is that anytime there is a beautiful woman, beautiful character, 9 times out of 10, that's Tolkien writing about his wife and then putting a different name at the front. So the question for the two of you is, throughout your writing, what love have you put into the characters that's meant for each other?
Oh, that's such a great... Ben, there are very few questions I can honestly say we have never been asked before.
I may have searched the past couple interviews you've done for random questions I could ask.
I'm trying to think, because I know I put people I didn't like in my book that I murdered.
That's true.
That's always a good one. Fight your enemies on the page.
Yes, exactly. I did that. But I don't, you're not in that book, because I didn't want to kill you.
But I think, I know.
So
I think we do it without intentionally doing a specific idea or message. I think it just comes out because we do create these things so often together. I think it just comes out naturally. Although I would say I often push you to play, maybe that's how the love comes out in a lot of the things that I write for Tara. I push her to play characters that she's not in real life. And I don't know why I do that. I don't know if that's love or not. I'm not sure. But
well, who I really am, because we've been married almost 23 years, because you're with me all of the time.
Yeah.
So I think you also want to gift me things to do, just being yourself. You're well, I'm just me again.
Right.
Then you get to be I do get to have if I'm Topsy, I have a fun comeback and I'm on top of it and I have my stuff together. I get to be somebody that I want to be in that moment. I don't want to live as Topsy necessarily. I still like to be me, but I get to be her when I'm that character.
Yeah. And it's, it is a comic book. So we're not actually in the comic book, but we are I feel that it is us.
It's us. I'm looking, you guys.
Sorry,
I'm looking at the table. It looks like I'm looking down at the table.
We're
looking at that. This is a galley copy of that.
Yeah.
All good.
But yeah, I think it. Here's my challenge to you, Ben, because I don't have the best answer, and that is to go back and look at all the things that we've sort of created together, and you see if you can tell where it comes out. If you look at Shelf Life, we created characters that would be fun for us to play. So the love is what would you think would be fun? Right.
You thought that character was fun, so we pushed him to be as fun as character as Bug Boy, or you know what I mean?
Right.
So for us, it's not I understand that Tolkien would be oh, this is this beautiful, ethereal, beautiful, whatever. But we weren't doing it with separation of just putting the character in. We're trying to gift the other person of what would be fun. This character is fun for you to play, so that the gift is how much fun can we make it, which could be a villain, or it could be a hero, or it could be, it doesn't matter what type of character it is, as long as it's fun for us to play with. I think that's the love, is the fun.
There you go.
That's all a good answer.
I was also going to say maybe the commissioned piece and the masquerade costume is definitely a show of love as well.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't have to be grand expressions. Sometimes it's the little things. Now, I've been married for almost 27 years, and I know that for me, it's the little things about my spouse that I really appreciate and I notice on a day-to-day. And sometimes if I'm thinking about those things, it's not always the grandiose things between spouses that matter the most. It's the little things, the little notices here and there. So the fact that you may have noticed this small thing about your spouse and wanted that in the story, I think that also speaks volumes to your own relationship. So
Yeah.
Yuri and Tara, thank you so much for being on our show today. Where can our listeners go and find more about you and more about your work?
Well, we are online on social medias under our names. So Yuri Lowenthal and Tara Platt on Twitter and Instagram.
Mostly on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah.
But if you want more information about Topsy, just go to Amazon. She's available. Topsy McGee and the Scarab of Solomon is available out right now in print on Amazon.
Oh, and if you want to see some of the other things that we've been talking about that we've created, we have each individual YouTube pages, but there's
Kingdom
of the Monkey, which is our Monkey Kingdom Productions channel on YouTube, as well as actually Shelf Life the series is its own channel as well.
Because there's 4 seasons of Shelf Life, which is very silly.
perfect.
All right. Thank you very much. We will make sure to put those in the show notes below so our listeners can go check them out.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you to Yuri and Tara for stopping by the FSF podcast. We want to remind you that subscribing is the single most important thing you can do to help our show continue to grow. Get amazing guests like Yuri and Tara to stop by, talk about their current works, what they're doing. And we're so glad to have them here and have that opportunity. So please subscribe to our show. Helps out more than we can ever really tell you. But make sure that you go to their links, which are in the show notes down below. Follow them on their social medias, but you're going to want to check out their new graphic novel, Topsy McGee and the Scarab of Solomon. It's a really cool steampunk graphic novel, and it was a lot of fun to read. So go check that out. But until next time, thank you for stopping by the FSF podcast, and goodbye.
I can't show the heart, but I'm doing it.
Copyright 2024 FSF Podcast. Reference any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.